A black teen is humiliated in a store by a racist employee who accuses him of stealing, but she has no idea his father is the CEO of the company. What happens when the tables turn? Watch until the end to see how justice is served, and comment where you're watching from. It was a busy Saturday afternoon at Crestwood Mall in Atlanta. Shoppers moved from store to store, bags in hand, chatting and laughing. Among them was 16-year-old Marcus, a shy but cheerful teenager with big dreams of becoming a graphic designer. Today, he was at the mall to buy supplies for an art competition at school. Marcus walked into a high-end stationery store, his eyes lighting up as he saw the shelves lined with sketchbooks, fancy pens, and art supplies. He was wearing a simple hoodie and jeans, his hands tucked into his pockets as he browsed the aisles. Across the store, Linda, a middle-aged woman with a designer purse and a sharp attitude, noticed Marcus. She was the type of person who believed she could size people up with a single glance, and to her, Marcus didn't fit in. He looked too out of place for a store like this. Linda clutched her purse tighter and whispered to the store clerk, a young woman who seemed uncomfortable but nodded along. "Keep an eye on him," Linda said, her voice low but sharp. "Kids like that don't come here to shop. They come to steal." Unaware of the suspicion directed at him, Marcus picked up a sketchbook and a set of colored pencils. He smiled, imagining the designs he could create. He carried them to the counter and placed them down, pulling out his wallet. Before the clerk could ring him up, Linda stormed over, her heels clicking loudly on the tiled floor. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "What do you think you're doing?" Marcus looked up, confused. "I'm buying these," he said quietly, holding up the items. Linda scoffed. "Buying them? With what money? Don't think I don't know your type. You probably walked in here thinking you could grab something and walk out without paying." The clerk hesitated, glancing between Marcus and Linda. "Ma'am, I don't think." "Don't interrupt me," Linda snapped at the clerk before turning back to Marcus. "Show me what's in your pockets." Marcus froze, his cheeks burning with embarrassment. "I didn't take anything," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Linda smirked. "Of course you'd say that. People like you always have an excuse." She grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the door. "We'll see what security has to say about this." A few customers nearby stopped to watch, their expressions ranging from shock to discomfort. One woman pulled out her phone, recording the scene. "Please," Marcus said, his voice trembling. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to buy these for my art project." Linda rolled her eyes. "Art project? Spare me the sob story. Do you even know how much this stuff costs? You can't afford it." Just as Linda reached for the store phone to call security, the door opened, and a tall man in a crisp suit walked in. His presence was commanding, his expression calm but observant. He glanced around the store, his eyes landing on Marcus and Linda. "Marcus?" the man said, his voice firm but kind. Marcus turned, relief washing over his face. "Dad?" Linda froze, her grip on Marcus's arm loosening. She looked between the man and the boy, her mind racing. "Wait, this is your father?" Marcus's dad stepped closer, his expression hardening as he looked at Linda. "Is there a problem here?" Linda stammered, her confidence faltering. "Oh no problem at all. I was just making sure everything was in order. You know, being cautious." Marcus's dad raised an eyebrow. "Cautious? By accusing my son of stealing?" Linda opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She hadn't expected this. The tension in the store was palpable. Linda's face turned red as she struggled to regain her composure. "I didn't mean to offend anyone," she said, her tone shifting to one of forced politeness. "I just thought—" "You thought what?" Marcus's dad interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "That my son didn't belong here? That he couldn't possibly afford to shop in this store?" Linda tried to laugh it off, but it came out shaky. No, of course not. I was just looking out for the store's best interests." The clerk, still standing behind the counter, finally spoke up. "Actually, ma'am, Marcus didn't do anything wrong. He was just about to pay for his items when you stepped in." Linda shot the clerk a glare, but it didn't stop Marcus's dad from stepping closer. "My son has done nothing but show respect while you've done nothing but humiliate him," he said, his voice steady but carrying a weight that made Linda shrink back. I didn't mean for it to come across that way, Linda said, trying to salvage the situation. I just thought it was suspicious, that's all. Suspicious? Marcus's dad said, crossing his arms. You didn't find it suspicious when I walked in, did you? Or is it only suspicious when it's a young black boy in a hoodie? The customers who had been watching murmured among themselves, some nodding in agreement. Linda's discomfort grew as she realized how many people were witnessing the scene. Look, she said, her voice defensive now, I was just trying to do the right thing. You can't blame me for being cautious. Marcus's dad held her gaze. Caution isn't the issue here. The issue is your bias, your assumption that my son was a thief just because of how he looks. Linda opened her mouth to argue but was interrupted by the sound of the door opening again. A man in his late 50s, dressed in a tailored suit, walked in. He exuded authority, and the clerk immediately straightened up. Mr. Harper, the clerk said, her voice respectful. Linda's face lit up. Oh, Mr. Harper. I'm so glad you're here. There's been a bit of a misunderstanding, but I've handled it. Mr. Harper looked at her, then at Marcus and his dad. Handled it? He asked, his tone sharp. Yes, Linda said quickly. This young man was acting suspiciously, so I intervened to make sure everything was okay. Marcus's dad stepped forward. And by intervened, she means she accused my son of stealing without any evidence? Mr. Harper's expression darkened. He turned to Linda. Is that true? Linda stammered, I was just trying to protect the store. Mr. Harper shook his head, disappointment evident. Linda, this is unacceptable. We don't treat customers like this, especially not based on baseless assumptions. But I didn't mean, Linda started, but Mr. Harper cut her off. You've embarrassed this young man and his father, tarnished the reputation of our store, and made a scene in front of other customers. This isn't the first time I've had complaints about your behavior, but it will be the last. Linda's eyes widened. Are you saying? Yes, Mr. Harper said firmly. You're fired. Pack your things and leave immediately. Linda's face turned pale. She looked around, hoping for sympathy, but the customers only watched in silence. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and hurried out of the store, her head down. Mr. Harper turned to Marcus and his dad, his expression softening. I'm deeply sorry for what happened. This store prides itself on treating everyone with respect, and I'm ashamed that you experienced otherwise. Marcus's dad nodded. Thank you for addressing it. Mr. Harper looked at Marcus. You have great taste in art supplies. Please, take whatever you'd like today, free of charge. It's the least we can do. Marcus's eyes widened. Really? Thank you. As Marcus picked out his supplies, the customers who had been watching began clapping softly, some offering kind words to Marcus and his dad. When they left the store, Marcus looked up at his dad. Thanks for standing up for me, Dad. His dad smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. Always, son. And remember, never let anyone make you feel like you don't belong. Marcus nodded, a new sense of confidence in his step as they walked out of the mall together.